Over the past few weeks or so, millions of people have become exposed to a man named Clavicular. And if you've spent any time online, you've probably seen the clips. A discussion about something like facial aesthetics or looksmaxxing or hard maxing or just basic attractiveness, the things that supposedly separate attractive men from unattractive men. And depending on who you ask, Clavicular is either exposing uncomfortable truths about attraction or representing literally everything wrong with modern self-improvement culture. But I think both sides are missing the bigger story, because Clavicular isn't the story and Bradley Martin isn't the story and these other fitness podcasters, influencers aren't the story, and really basically Looksmaxxing isn't even the story. The story is why so many young men are finding these ideas compelling in the first place, because like 10 years ago, conversations like these existed on obscure, weird, fringe internet forums, and today they're appearing on some of the biggest mainstream platforms and podcasts in the world. Something has changed, and if we're honest, it isn't hard to understand why exactly. We are living through what I believe is a genuine male insecurity epidemic, and that's not because men suddenly became insecure. We are humans, we are people too, we've always been insecure, but basically insecurity has become one of the largest industries on the internet in the world, and young men are its primary customers. Let's start with something that doesn't get said quite enough. Some of the concerns driving looksmaxxing culture are real. People care about appearance. Attractive people are often treated differently. Dating apps place enormous emphasis on physical appearance. Social media amplifies beauty standards, and none of this is a controversial hot take. The problem begins, though, when legitimate concerns become total explanations. When every problem becomes some version of I'm lonely because of my face, or unsuccessful, or invisible, or unhappy because of my face. Humans love these sort of simple explanation, and that's because simple explanations make the problems feel more manageable, and the internet specializes in selling certainty. That's part of what makes, in particular, looksmaxxing so appealing to so many people. It offers a framework, a system, a map, and it tells people your life isn't confusing. Your life is just a math problem. First, you need to identify the flaws, and then when you fix the flaws, you'll get the outcome. It's that simple. There's something deeply comforting about that, especially for young men who feel lost, because uncertainty is painful and certainty sells. There's a strange transformation that happens in many self-improvement communities. People begin with healthy goals. They want to get stronger or healthier, more confident or more attractive, and of course there's nothing wrong with that. But over time, improvement can turn into obsession. You stop looking at your body and you start inspecting it. You stop training and you start analyzing. You really just stop living and you start measuring, because every mirror becomes for you an evaluation. Every photo becomes evidence, and every interaction becomes some sort of feedback. The body becomes a project, and the face itself becomes a project. The entire self, if you will, becomes a project, and projects are never finished. That's the trap, because optimization has no finish line. There is no moment where the algorithm says, congratulations, you are now complete. Instead, it presents another problem and another flaw, one more metric, one more insecurity. The reward for fixing one insecurity is often discovering 3, 4, 5 more insecurities. Now we arrive at the uncomfortable part. Insecurity isn't just a psychological phenomenon. It's now a business model. Think about what performs online today. Does confidence go viral? Sometimes, not always. Does content telling people they're already enough go viral? Rarely. What goes viral is dissatisfaction, fear, comparison, anxiety, the feeling that you're falling behind because people engage most with content that threatens their sense of adequacy. The algorithm doesn't necessarily care whether you're becoming healthier. It cares whether you're paying attention. And insecurity is one of the most reliable ways to capture attention. The more time people spend evaluating themselves, the more content they consume, the more products they buy, the more advice they seek, the more dependent they become. This isn't unique to Looksmaxxing. You see it in fitness and business and productivity and dating and personal development. Entire industries are built around convincing people they're one step away from finally becoming acceptable. And that step never arrives. This is why I think the reaction to clavicular misses the point. People debate whether he's right, whether he's wrong, whether his methods are extreme, or his claims are even accurate, but those questions aren't the most interesting ones. The interesting question is, why does he resonate? Why do millions of people watch? Why are these clips spreading? Why are these conversations moving from niche internet communities into mainstream fitness culture? The answer isn't that everyone suddenly became irrational. The answer is that clavicular speaks to an anxiety that already exists. He didn't create it. He's responding to it. The internet didn't invent male insecurity. It found a way to neatly package it and monetize it and then distribute it and scale it to millions of people simultaneously. That's why these conversations keep growing. They're addressing a real emotional demand, even if the answers they're providing are sometimes incomplete. The irony is that most young men involved in these communities are trying to solve a completely reasonable problem. They want confidence, they want connection, respect, they want meaning. The problem is that many of them have become convinced that these things exist only on the other side of physical perfection, but physical perfection does not exist. And even if it did, it wouldn't solve every human problem, because insecurity is rarely just about appearance. It's about identity and belonging and status. It's about fear and self-worth, and those problems can't be completely solved with optimization. The male insecurity epidemic isn't that men care too much about how they look. The epidemic is that more and more men are being taught to view themselves as unfinished projects, constantly evaluating, constantly improving, constantly comparing, constantly searching for flaws. And if you're always searching for flaws, you will always find them. The question isn't whether clavicular is right. The question isn't whether Bradley Martin or these other podcasters and influencers are right. The question is whether a generation of young men is becoming trapped in a game that can never actually be won. And that's a question worth taking seriously.